All right. So games we are worried about 2023. I don't really I don't really have a format or a segment that I want to do this in. Let's just kind of go through a couple and talk about some things that we are worried about releasing in 2023. I'll kick this off for you. Kind
Okay.
of make this simple. October. I worry about everything in October. What the
Just
hell are you publishers doing?
just the month. You're just worried about the month.
They are cannibalizing each other. Forza Motorsport on the 10th, Assassin's Creed Mirage on the 12th, Lords of the Fallen on the 13th, Alan Wake 2 on the 17th, Spider-Man 2 on the 20th, Super Mario Bros. World on the 20th, Metal Gear Solid Collection on the 24th, Alone in the Dark on the 25th. What are you guys doing? That's a horrible idea.
It's a good thing we're not like a review channel like these big guys, and you have to like cover everything. We would lose our minds.
Absolutely, but I mean, like, are you're expecting? You're telling me, Lords of the Fallen. You're telling me you think it's a good idea to be in the same month as Assassin's Creed Mirage and Spider-Man 2, two other third-person action adventure games. That makes no sense to me. Get the hell out of October. No offense to Lords of the Fallen. Get the hell out. Honestly, I'm not trying to be rude. There's a couple other ones in here. Even maybe Assassin's Creed Mirage. You might need to get to November, get to December pretty quickly here. I know you have Avatar launching in December as well, which that's another game I'm kind of worried about. That could be an absolute disaster. Just we have no idea, but I worry about that Avatar game in general. But yeah, my first shout out's going all to everything in October. I worry about everything in October except Super Mario Bros. World and Spider-Man 2. Everything else, I'm like, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous month.
I mean, yeah, Kyle, that's a cheeky way to just cover like 50 games and take all. I don't think any of the ones I had, well, except for one of them. I'll just wrap up Alan Wake 2 is in there because I'm only worried about it, not because of what you said, but just because the first game does have such a cult following. And even though it's not considered a perfect game by any means, certainly the gameplay that I'm worried about in the extent of there's a very certain tone and feel and campiness to Alan Wake, the first one, that although they're trying to very much lean more into survival horror, purely in psychological horror, I just hope they don't lose some of what made the original feel oftentimes kind of cheesy and quirky. So like, how do you balance that? So I'm worried about it on that front, but I think they're being very transparent up front, trying to show at least enough or at least some gameplay to be like, hey, this is we're kind of keeping it the same but more scary. But man, you just stole the whole month of there. Jeez Louise, man. Way to be a cheeky little punk there and do that. It is reminiscent of when Titanfall 2 though released between what was it, Battlefield 1 and
Call of
Call of
Duty.
Duties,
Yeah.
which just sucks because Titanfall 2 was like it's such a freaking good game.
Yeah. And it's
But
like
you have to sorry, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say you have to imagine that one, if not multiple, of these games are going to be pushed. Like this, I mean, games are constantly pushed. So like you have to imagine even a month or two before, there's going to be some of these that either get moved up or moved out of the month. Like I to think that it wouldn't happen would be crazy in this era of things constantly moving, right? You'd have to assume.
Yeah, you have to assume, but we have had these months before that are just like 2020. I believe it might have been October, November 2020, where it was like Cyberpunk, Valhalla, Watch Dogs Legions was right around that. It was just like these huge games that were definitely, competitors of one another. And like this holiday way, regardless, yeah, I agree. Something will get pushed. And for the sake of Lords of the Fallen, I hope that game gets pushed because that's a horrible idea to go up against us. So I guess my first one's going to be Lords of the Fallen there, but staying on your point with Alan Wake 2, the swapping between the detective and Alan Wake, I wonder how people are going to feel about that as well. Like, oh man, people who want to play exclusively as Alan Wake in this sequel, or maybe how much time is Alan Wake even going to get? Because what we've seen of the gameplay so far is just the detective, going around and some third person shooting from her perspective. And so I'm wondering, is Alan Wake going to be kind of relegated to a side role? But I think they have said it's a 50-50 split on that. I can't confirm that, but that is kind of, I'm curious about that as well.
Here's my theory. There's nothing to base this on, but they're being very coy about the Alan Wake segments, right? My theory is, again, nothing to base this on, is that maybe they're doing that because they're going to really lean very heavily into like crazy, maybe even Silent Hill-esque psychological horror stuff with the Alan Wake sections based on the story of the first and him being lost in, the whole darkness stuff. Again, I'm not good at remembering story things. I just wonder if they're being coy with that because they're going to really like surprise players with the horror being like this element of his part of it. I guess maybe like the medium, how that kind of, I mean, I know that's different of how like split the screen, but I just wonder if they're going to surprise people. I hope, again, that's just kind of a theory, but you're right. It does look kind of by the books when you see the other character just kind of like over the shoulder RE4 style stuff, right? And that's not reductive. That's just saying that's what it looks like so far.
Yeah, and I'm totally down for that. Like if I once again, I'm not a huge Alan Wake guy. If Alan Wake was barely in it at all, I really wouldn't care at all. As long as that gameplay, if the gameplay looks that damn good and stays that damn good, yeah, I'd be on board for that. But I am curious how the fan base responds to that. But a game that I am, and I don't mean to be so so rude here to some of these titles that are going under the radar, but Fort Solis, I've never in my life seen a game that is set to release in 1 month. 1 month that has shown nothing as to what we can expect from this game in terms of the moment-to-moment gameplay. We got Roger Clark and Troy Baker as like the two main protagonists, or maybe one protagonist, one antagonist. I don't know how they're going to set it up. I don't know anything about this game. They've shown, as far as I'm aware, as far as I have seen, I've not seen a second of gameplay of this. And if what we have seen is gameplay, then that makes me even more worried because it seems like you're just walking around. And
what is this game? I've
Jeffrey,
never heard of this game.
I wish I could tell you. It seems like it seems like a horror game, I guess. You're on a ship, I think. It's got some, it's the visuals are stunning for a smaller title like this. They got some big named voice actors, but Jeffrey, I don't know anything about this thing. Anything.
And when does it launch?
August.
And we don't know literally what even the game is.
I have no idea.
That's unfortunate.
It's crazy, man.
What?
And I went and looked this up. I hope that there hasn't been a trailer that popped up since I looked it up, but I still, from what I see, the last trailer for this game was a few months ago, and it was no real gameplay shown off of this thing at all.
That's a concern. I mean, that's a wider concern, but you just have to imagine that's going to get pushed because like if there's zero about it, I can't, and I'm pretty much in the zeitgeist of game stuff, and I've never even heard of it, which is concerning.
I gotta give myself an L here, I think.
Oh no, what happened?
5 days ago, there's a new gameplay trailer. Let's I'm gonna go through it real quick and see if there's anything in here. Okay, that's no, fine. There's still, this still looks. I'm scanning through it.
Mm-hmm.
This still looks. This does not tell me enough about this game. It seems like some kind of puzzle solving and stuff. Regardless, that does not change my opinion at all. It's a 1 minute slice. No, that does not change my opinion. I'm still very, very worried about that game for sure.
Well, I think the fact that never even heard of it and you have, and like there's nothing about it is a big thing to be worried about. I'm going to go on a flip side here because I know you've talked about on the flip side of this coin, this game has been heavily, and I mean heavily pushed and marketed. And that's not a bad thing. I just mean it heavily has been. And that the game I'm worried about is Immortals of Aveum. That this could be the flip side of the coin. Now, I'm not saying this is someone that's not excited. This looks very much up my alley. Like first person magic based, fast paced action sounds fantastic. My concern is also when you sometimes heavily and overly market and have influencers and YouTube channels push it. That's not a bad thing. It's just you could also be trying to cover up that maybe the game really isn't going to be good. Again, I have nothing to base that on. I want it to be good. I'm just worried because seeing so much about it from places I wouldn't expect, like random YouTube channels, just makes me wonder, like, are they pushing it because they're like, crap, we just have to like get everyone hyped and it may not be good, or because they strongly do believe in it, which I hope for, and it comes out that way. It just looks like it could go either way for me. Like it's super unpolished and broken, or they blow everyone away, which I hope. So that one to me is, I'm just very worried about for what that's worth.
The thing that worries me is I wonder if people are going to be willing to buy a full price new IP. This is $70. This is a $70 big boy.
Who's the developer and publisher? Do you know? Is it someone that has a pedigree?
No, they're actually it's a new team that is they're getting funding. I forget from who. It's just some rich dude who ended up funding the game, but it's coming from like one of the, I believe the creative director of an old Call of Duty game, who they also have some talent who who used to work at EA on like some of the Dead Space games. So there's some pedigree on that team, no doubt about it. And it seems like they just got like serious funding for this thing from some rich dude that he had contacts with. So I don't know.
Okay. All right. What do you got? Do you got another? I got two more. So hit me if you got another one.
I'll go through really quick here. This is my most anticipated game of the year, but obviously I worry about Starfield. Everybody who has a brain should be worried about Starfield. Is the main quest going to be bullshit? Is this going to be totally broken? There's just so, how fun will the exploration be? Will the writing be better than the typical Bethesda games? There's so many questions here. It's far and away my most anticipated game in development by like, or not in development, but that would probably be like Grand Theft Auto 6 or whatever. But like, this is my most anticipated game of the year by like, so far it's not even, it's hilarious how much more anticipated I am for this game than anything else. Wow. But I have a brain. I know that these humongous RPGs tend to launch disastrously. You know, even the Witcher 3 launched poorly. Cyberpunk obviously launched poorly. Fallout 4, these huge RPGs, they tend to launch pretty poorly. So I am worried about that. That's an obvious one though.
That's an obvious one that I had as well. And I'll be honest, I'm not like super pumped for it. I'll try it out because it's on Game Pass. I have no fanfare for it. I love Skyrim and Oblivion are two of my favorite games, but again, not a big sci-fi guy. And I played No Man's Sky a little bit. That was fine. So I'm not even like, I wouldn't even like, if this wasn't a Game Pass thing, I wouldn't play it. I would have no interest. I'm just worried from the sense that, yeah, Bethesda games, while beloved, for myself included, generally launch very jankily, if that's a word.
Yeah.
That being said, again, there is some of that charm with that, as long as it doesn't break the structure of the game, and as long as the game, as you've always said, has variety and keeps you moving in a not linear, but in a cohesive fashion where you're not like, holy cow, there's a billion planets and I don't know what to do, or what do I do? Do I do anything? As long as it sticks to that stuff, for sure. But yeah, I think everyone has some level of skepticism, but it's interesting that you're so hyped and feel that, and I don't have any hype. And I feel that. I think that just points to the fact that it's a big game. Of course, there's going to be a lot of unknown with it, right?
Yeah, it's maybe the most ambitious game that's ever been made, and like that's. And then the crazy thing is, we can say that and kind of be confident that there's some truth in that. So of course that it runs the risk of being a disaster at launch. So right. Yeah, that's an obvious one there. I'm gonna give a couple quick shout outs.
Yeah.
The Expanse, Telltale's new game. My only worry here is that people don't support this. It comes out, reviews poorly, whatever, and then we don't see The Wolf Among Us 2. That's the only thing I care about here is that we don't see The Wolf Among Us 2. I think I told you this before. I literally went and pre-ordered the damn Expanse just so I can ensure that my money's going there so that we can hopefully get The Wolf Among Us 2 in the next in the next couple of years. Did you say you had another one that you wanted to shout out?
Well, wait, didn't you say, and also real quick, didn't you say The Wolf Among Us is one of the games that brought you back into gaming?
Yes, the game.
A while back. I feel like you said that one time. Is that correct?
100%. That is the game that got me back into gaming. The individual game that's responsible for it.
So it makes sense that you would hold a lot of weight and praise for Telltale, even though it's different now. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Really quick, I don't have much to say on this. I'll let you do your last one. I'm not super pumped, but I have a lot of worry, is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game coming in October. The reason why, and I love asymmetrical horror games, Dead by Daylight's one of my favorites. The developer IllFonic just, They keep trying new games and they dip out of them, which is really concerning. You know, they did the Friday the 13th, which was a mess and a disaster, but it was fun for what it was. But they dipped out of that because of licensing stuff. Then they did like the Predator game, which was cool, but then they dipped out of that. It's like they keep making new projects, but then they don't support them. And that's just a big concern. And so I think with this one, which is highly niche, you already have the Leatherface in Dead by Daylight. By the way, Dead by Daylight's been going on for 7+ years and is one of the most supported games in terms of the developer. I'm just worried that it's not that it won't be fun, but IllFonic just constantly bails on their games. And these are purely multiplayer games to an extent. So I'll try it out. It's coming into Game Pass, but I'm just worried that it's going to be another one in 3 months' time. They either lose the license, or they're just like, we'll just move on to the next property, and then you lose all your players that spent money on it, So
Yeah, I'm with you. That's one I thought about as well. I'm worried about that one also. Similar in that vein of the live service realm. I'm worried about Exoprimal, and this is a total different reason to be worried. I'm worried that this will do well. That's my worry. I hate to be this guy. I don't want this to poison the well at Capcom. Capcom's been on such a hot streak. Please don't send these talented ass developers off to make games like this. Let's get to the Code Veronicas. Let's get to the Dino Crisis. Let's get to the Onimusha. Let's get to the I'm kind of blanking on the Devil May Cry. We need a new Devil May Cry. Yeah. There's a bunch of stuff. We can't be supporting Exoprimal. This thing got to die quick.
So you don't want it to do well because you don't want people to then be like, oh, well, Capcom is now, because Capcom will then be like, we're only going to make live service games. We should state though, this is live service, but it's a full price game. They're running this as a full price game and as a live service with free to play elements. So that's a big concern, and just for a lot of other reasons. So
yeah, I that was what I got to be clear. What I said was a little bit rude. I'm not saying I want this thing to actually die, but I do want those talented developers to go work on other things. But yeah, I agree. I am worried about it from the basic structuring of how the game is being made and released. I'm worried about that as well from that standpoint. So a lot of worry for Exoprimal across the board.
I hear what you're saying. I know it doesn't come across as rude. It comes across as like, we just don't want to see we don't want to see those kind of chances where it's like, then it's not the single player focus as well. It's then just the whole monetize you to get the multiplayer stuff. And then when that dies, the servers die, you can't play the game. So like, there's a lot of valid concern, even if it is a good game, So
absolutely. Yeah. So
do you have more? I don't have any more. So if you have more, go ahead and shout them out.
I have one kind of weird worry, but no, actually not really. Cause I was starting to make this list before Baldur's Gate 3 got delayed. I was kind of worried about Baldur's Gate 3, before it got, or before it actually got pushed up and then delayed back on PlayStation. It got pushed up to August 3rd on PC, so it wouldn't be around Starfield. But right. I was a little bit worried about that. Launching right next to Starfield seemed like a horrible idea, but I think that was a good idea on PC. I do think it's a pretty bad idea to not launch physically. I feel like that player base on who knows. I hope it does well because the game looks super ambitious, super cool. But yeah, I'm a lot less worried now that it got delayed or pushed up out of the way of Starfield. So that would be my last one there.
Cool. That's a smart, and that's what I think with October, we'll see a little bit of that. Either some ready games that have gone platinum or gold, whatever they call it, will either get pushed up or pushed out. You have to imagine if a smaller team for Baldur's Gate 3, in quotes, that you'd have to imagine some of the big guys are going to be on that as well, So
for sure.